not to be embarrassed when somebody insults your religiosity. Be light like an eagle, strong like a lion, quick like a deer. We imagine, we take properties that are in animals. By the way, you could even say that some of these properties are imagined in animals. They may or may not actually be animals the way we envision them, but they still are how we imagine that animal. And we project it into ourselves. That's a human characteristic. And what we are doing is we are trying to create our soul. What do you mean try to create the soul? Didn't God create the soul? He did. But if you don't want it, you won't get it. He created a potential for you to access these levels of consciousness. They're there for the taking. But guess what? There's a lot that's in you that if you don't open your inner eye, you'll never see it. So that's the first thing. Tammuz uri'u kito havaya. Taste and see that God is good. So we need to not just look at the animals and all the other objects, inanimate, physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, but we have to ultimately look at the source of how things are coming into being from non-being. The idea of something coming into being means you take nothing for granted. You never get stuck in the trap of the ego, of the construct of existence. You see, why do people fight wars? For good reason, mostly. They feel their existence is threatened. Okay? We perceive that another country or another people wants to attack us. So we rouse up our anger at them or our frustration. We defend ourselves. See, the problem is, and then there are other people say don't have an ego, so don't fight a war. The problem is, if you're a pacifist, you're vulnerable, and you create vulnerability for other people also. So, I don't have the answer for how to really have peace in the world. Most people who have the answer are either have a good idea that nobody can follow because it just goes too much against human nature, or are just living in a la-la land. But the reality is like this. We have to have a healthy relationship between what we can visualize of the spirit, not just of the ego. Because the ego, the job of the ego is to visualize our enemies. Just like it's to fantasize sexual fantasies and create hunger in us so that we go and we feed ourselves. The Yetzer Hara has the function of creating fear in us to protect ourselves. So sometimes that fear, just like our appetite, is healthy and necessary. If you didn't have an appetite, you wouldn't eat. If you didn't have a sexual urge, there would be no procreation. People would eventually go out of existence. So therefore you need these desires. It's just that those same desires could lead to sexually transmitted diseases, obesity, I don't know, innocent bloodshed, in the case of people going to war when it's not really necessary. So getting back to the eye, the looking, what it basically comes down to is, when I only look, and this is teaching, when I only look at somebody else as another body, then there's only so many resources in the world. So then I see that person as a competitor. I see they're taking away a job I could have, they're taking away a raise I can have, they're taking away a potential mate that I can have. They're taking away my parking space. And there's only so many, especially if you live in Manhattan, you realize the scarcity of parking space. And right away, anybody with a car is an enemy. They're going to get it before you, or you're going to get it before them. There have been people who have had bodily harm dealt to them because the other driver felt that they had taken their spot. That is the reality. That is the existence reality that we live in. The Yetzer Hara on that level is what leads us to protect ourselves, sometimes rightfully, sometimes wrongfully. It's all in the balance. The Rambam read something very beautiful. In the beginning of the Rambam, the Sefer Yad HaChazak, Sefer Hamadi, he explains what is the proper path a person should go on. And he says the following thing. He says that a person might say that since the kina and the taiba, the jealousy and desire take a person out of this world, they lead to many negative things, I will remove myself from them to the extreme. And I will not want to own a home. I will not want to live with a man or live with a woman. I want to be like celibate. I will not want to have possessions. I will not want to eat regular food. I want to eat only minimal. The Rambam says that is not the proper way. Even though there are all of these pitfalls that are inherent in the physical world, the pleasures of the world, that's not the proper way. Why not? Because although there are the spiritual leaders of the other religions that's how they believe is the proper path to lead, that's not the Jewish path. The Jewish path is the path, the Rambam says, where we do engage in the physical world. We do believe in Yishuv HaOlam, the settling of the physical world, not the denying of it. But it has to be done in a way that balances it out, where anger has to be managed, where arrogance has to be managed. But even anger needs to be used, if only as a way of showing somebody else, even if you can control yourself on the inside, but on the outside, anger is a viable way of showing somebody that you're upset at them if they repeatedly fail to do something which is really necessary for them in terms of their own relationship with God. And so too is most other things. There has to be a middle path in which we enjoy some things in the world. We do eat healthy food. We don't overindulge. Ramana says the whole thing about it's important not to eat just what you feel like eating, because that's like a donkey. I didn't know that about donkeys, but apparently the Rambam writes that donkeys just eat whatever is sweet. I guess they're like sugar. I see them maybe, those little sugar lumps. But you have a responsibility. Your body is the home for your soul. So if all you're going to do is eat whatever tastes good and what isn't good for you, so you're harming yourself. And if you harm yourself, you'll harm your relationship to God, because an unhealthy person, it's very difficult to have a relationship with God when you're suffering, especially if you are creating the suffering by your own bad eating habits and other negative health habits that you have. So that it's all connected. The entirety of everything that we do is all towards this middle path.